she paid a stranger everything she had left to keep her safe from the Alpha King. He took her money. He took her across 300 miles of hostile territory. He kept every wolf off her trail. And when she finally told him, exhausted, grateful, terrified, that she'd hired him to protect her from Frank Mao, he went very still. Then he smiled. He just did. She'd been running toward him the entire time. Rebecca didn't know the man she hired to escort her out of San Vallejo was the very king she was running from. She didn't know that behind his mercenary calm and those unsettlingly quiet eyes lived a man hunting the traitor who'd taken his sister. She didn't know their paths had been pulled together long before she'd chosen him, that her blood, her relic, her name had already been spoken inside his court. All she knew was this: if she didn't reach San Jose before the blood moon rose, Frank Mao's ancient pack law would give him the legal right to claim her. And the roads between here and there were marked by the shallow graves of women foolish enough to travel them alone. The mercenary tavern on the edge of San Vallejo smelled like torch smoke and something wilder underneath: damp fur, iron, old threat. Rebecca stood just inside the entrance, her satchel pulled tight against her ribs, the small violet pouch her father had left her pressing against her sternum like a second heartbeat. Around her, men drank without looking at their cups because they were too busy looking at her. None of them with anything she wanted. She had brought 400 marks. It was everything what remained after her father's debts, the burial fees she hadn't been prepared for, the bribe she'd paid at the South Gate just to leave San Vallejo without a pack, escort demanding to know her destination. 400 marks to buy safe passage across 300 miles of territory where every road informant reported to someone, and half of those someones reported to the Alpha King. The problem was she had no idea what a good mercenary looked like when he was trying not to be found. The ones who met her eyes too quickly, she dismissed. The ones with fresh scars and nothing behind their gaze, she dismissed too. She was looking for something she couldn't name, someone composed enough not to flinch, dangerous enough that others already had. A broad man with a split lip detached himself from the bar and moved toward her with the lazy confidence of someone who'd never needed to hurry. Lost, little wolf. His smile showed too many teeth. Rebecca squared her shoulders and thought of her mother, who had faced down Alpha enforcers in their own hall without raising her voice once. I need to hire a mercenary, she said clearly. Someone who can get me to San Jose, quietly. What happened next she would replay for the rest of her life. The room shifted. Not loudly, no scraping chairs, no drawn steel, just a subtle collective stillness, the way a forest goes silent before something apex passes through it. The man with the split lip stopped moving. Rebecca felt the change before she understood it, a pressure change in the air, the torches seeming to pull back on their brackets. And then a voice came from the far corner, low, unhurried, cutting through the room like it had every right to. I'll take the job. She turned. He was leaning against the stone arch with the ease of someone who had never once in his life needed to prove he belonged somewhere. Dark hair, dark coat, the kind of stillness that didn't come from patience but from absolute self-possession. His eyes, when the torchlight caught them, glinted blue, not warmly, like a blade catching light. A wolf's silhouette filled the archway above him, shadow cast by the flame. She told herself it was just the angle. Around him, without a word being exchanged, every other man in the tavern had quietly returned to their drinks. Rebecca crossed the room. She kept her chin up. She told herself the cold moving up her spine was the night draft through the old stone walls. She told herself she had chosen him. She had absolutely no idea. Her father's relic pulsed once against her chest, violet light bleeding through the leather pouch as if it already knew something she didn't. She ignored it. She would regret that. She crossed the tavern in 11 steps. She counted them because counting kept her breathing even. He didn't stand when she reached him, didn't posture or perform. He simply looked up from his cup, those ice-blue eyes settling on her with the patience of something that had been waiting long before she arrived. "I need to reach San Jose," she said, "before the blood moon. I have 400 marks and no interest in conversation." A beat of silence. "$350 up front," he said. "50 when you arrive." "That's not non-negotiable." She paid him. He stood and she realized for the first time how much space he occupied. Not loudly, not with performance, but the way a stone wall occupies space. Simply, completely, without apology. They left before the tavern crowd noticed. The forest road swallowed them within minutes, pine and black oak pressing close, the last light dying somewhere behind the canopy. Rogelio walked ahead, not beside her, and not behind where he could read the road and keep her in his periphery without appearing to watch. She noticed everything. His scarred knuckles, his disciplined posture, the way his hand drifted toward his blade when a wolf called deep in the tree line, then stopped, as if the sound had confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Your father," he said without turning. "What pack was he aligned with?" "I didn't mention my father." "You mentioned San Vallejo. The Kirby name is known there." Before she could respond, the pouch beneath her coat flared warm. Violet light bled through the leather seams. She nearly lost her grip entirely. He stopped walking, looked at it not with surprise, with recognition. "Old magic," she managed. He turned back to the road. "If the Alpha King wanted you dead," he said quietly, "you'd already be gone." She stared at his shoulders against the darkening trees. That wasn't reassurance. That was a confession. They came on the second mile. No warning, no posturing. 4 figures dropped from the canopy in perfect formation, coordinated silence, dark deer, no pack markings she recognized. Not bandits. Bandits announced themselves. These men moved like a unit that had rehearsed this exact road, this exact night. 2 flanked left, 2 cut off the path ahead. "Give us the pouch," the lead one said. His eyes stayed on Rebecca. Only Rebecca. Walk away unharmed. Her hand flew to her chest. Rogelio stepped forward. What happened next didn't follow the rules she understood. He moved and the word moved, barely covered it. He closed 6 feet of distance before she registered. Shifted his weight. Drove an elbow into the nearest attacker's throat with a crack that echoed wrong, too fast, too dense, like something beyond trained muscle. The second man swung a blade. Rogelio caught the wrist, twisted, and the snap was clean and absolute. His eyes, in the moonlight filtering through the canopy, they blazed fully, unmistakably blue. Not a reflection, not a trick of torchlight. Alive. 30 seconds. 4 men on the ground. None dead, she noticed that too. He'd chosen exactly how much damage to do. The last attacker, bleeding from his temple, looked past Rogelio directly at her. "The Alpha doesn't know you're alive yet," he rasped. "Enjoy the road while it lasts." Then he stopped moving. Rogelio straightened. Rolled his shoulder once. His eyes faded back to that cool, controlled blue she'd catalogued in the tavern. "Who sent them?" she asked. "Doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She stepped closer. "You broke that man's arm before he finished drawing his blade. Who are you?" He picked up his pack. Someone who got paid. They sheltered in a ruined stone corridor, collapsed archways, torch brackets still bolted to the walls, someone's abandoned fire pit still faintly warm. Outside, the forest had gone quiet in a way. That meant the wolves were listening. Rebecca opened the pouch. She'd never opened it fully. Her father's instructions had been exact. Keep it closed, keep it hidden, keep moving. But after tonight, after those attackers who knew her name, who wanted the relic specifically, she needed to understand what she was carrying. The violet light that bled out wasn't gentle. It filled the corridor like a second torch, deep purple pulsing in slow rhythmic waves. The relic itself was small, a carved stone medallion, ancient, marked with symbols she didn't recognize. "Don't," she started. Rogelio crouched beside her and touched it. The violet snuffed out. Blue ignited. Same pulse, same rhythm, different color, his color, the exact shade of his eyes when they'd blazed during the ambush. The relic didn't flinch from him, didn't resist. It recognized him. "That's an alpha bloodline seal," he said quietly, "bound to a specific lineage. Whoever carries it inherits the debt and the target." "How do you know that?" He didn't answer. She watched him study the medallion, something crossing his face that wasn't mercenary calm. It was older than that, more personal. He reached toward her, then his scarred hand rising slowly, aimed at her jaw, the gesture of someone who'd forgotten for one unguarded moment to maintain distance. He stopped himself, pulled back. The silence between them was unbearable. "I hired you," she said softly, "to protect me from Frank Mao." He stood. Behind him, cast by the flickering torch against the stone wall, a wolf's shadow stretched and aligned perfectly, impossibly with his silhouette. He stepped forward. "You just did." The blue light faded. The stone corridor held its silence. Rebecca didn't move. Neither did he, but something in him had shifted. The careful mercenary architecture dismantled in a single exhale, replaced by something older, heavier. The particular stillness of a man who had been performing relaxation for days and had simply stopped. "Rogelio isn't your name," she said. "No." The torch between them crackled. "Say it." "Frank Mao." She took one step back. Her spine met cold stone. Everything recontextualized in a single brutal second. The tavern going quiet when he spoke, the wolves not snarling near him, the attacker's confusion, his knowledge of pack law, the relic burning his color. "You've been with me this entire time." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "You knew who I was. You knew what I carried." "I suspected you were bait." He didn't flinch from it. "Someone in my inner circle is feeding information to rebels. My sister Cheryl disappeared 3 weeks ago." Evidence points inward. His jaw tightened. "I needed to move without being Frank Mao." "So you used me." "I protected you from my own counsel who wanted you controlled." His eyes held hers. "There's a difference. You don't get to decide that." "No." Something shifted in his expression, raw, unguarded. "I don't." The silence stretched. "When my blood touched yours," she said carefully. "On the road, after the ambush." One word, carrying everything. "You didn't claim it." "Claiming you without consent would make me everything you ran from." His voice dropped. "I won't be that." She studied him, the Alpha King, unmade and unmasked, standing in torchlight like a man waiting for a verdict. "If I stay," she said, "it's my choice." I would rather lose the throne, he said quietly, than cage you. The stronghold was carved into the hillside like a secret someone had been keeping for generations. Stone-cut, torch-lined, packed with pack elders whose faces Rebecca didn't recognize but whose authority she could feel pressing against the walls. Frank moved ahead of her. She let him. Cheryl stood at the chamber's center. Alive, composed, wearing no signs of captivity, no hollow eyes, no drawn posture. She stood the way someone stands when they've been exactly where they chose to be. Frank stopped walking. Brother? Cheryl's voice carried easily across the stone chamber. You followed her all the way here, just as I knew you would. The elders shifted, watching. You staged it, Frank said, not a question. Every piece. No apology in it. The disappearance, the rebel signals, the ambush on the road designed to push you together, not apart. I needed witnesses to see what you'd become. She gestured toward Rebecca. I needed her relic to make you move personally. Rebecca felt the pouch pulse against her sternum. She's a conspirator, Cheryl announced to the chamber. Her bloodline has been sheltering rebel intelligence for a decade. Her father hid that seal to keep it from Alpha authority. Every elder eye moved to Rebecca. She understood then with cold, clarifying precision that she had never been the target. She had been the instrument. Cheryl hadn't wanted her destroyed. She'd wanted Frank exposed. You've grown ruthless, Cheryl said, her voice dropping, aimed entirely at her brother now. You've forgotten what the Alpha throne is for. This is treason, Frank said quietly. This is reform. Cheryl stepped forward, and every elder in this room has already agreed. Outside, through the narrow stone slits, the blood moon began its slow, inevitable rise. Cheryl moved faster than Rebecca anticipated. The blade came from her sleeve, thin, dark-edged, the kind of weapon designed not to kill immediately but to dismantle. It caught Frank across the ribs before he registered his sister's intent, and the effect was immediate. He staggered. His eyes blazed blue, involuntary, overwhelmed, and his body couldn't decide what it was anymore. The shift stuttered. His shoulders broadened, his hands lengthened, bones cracking in unnatural sequence, and then stopped, suspended grotesquely between forms, half man, half wolf, bleeding from the gap between his plates of armor where the wolfsbane blade had found skin. He dropped to one knee. The chamber erupted. Rebel elders surged forward. 3 archers materialized from the corridor's shadows, arrows trained. Cheryl stepped back, her expression not triumphant, grieved, resolute, the face of someone who believed completely in what they'd done. It ends here, she said quietly. Rebecca ran. Not toward the exit. Toward him. She didn't think it through. There was no architecture to the decision, no strategy. Just her body moving before her mind caught up, placing itself between Frank and the drawn arrows with a clarity that felt like recognition. She pulled the relic from her coat. The moment her fingers closed fully around it, it detonated, violet and blue erupting together. Neither color consuming the other, the seal responding to both bloodlines simultaneously, amplifying something that had no name yet but felt ancient and inevitable. Not a weapon. A shield. The archers flinched back, the elders stilled. Frank's breathing steadied fractionally, painfully, the wolfsbane fighting what the relic was feeding him. He collapsed forward. She caught him. His full weight against her chest, his broken breathing against her throat. She held him. She chose him. He shouldn't have been able to stand. Rebecca felt him gather himself against her, the shudder running through his frame, the wolf's bane fighting every system he had, and she tightened her grip on the relic instinctively. The violet-blue light responded, pouring warmth through her palm into him, not overriding the poison but contesting it, buying inches where there had been none. Frank stood. Not fully shifted, not fully man, something sovereign in between, commanding the space simply by occupying it, the way he'd commanded the tavern, the road, every room he'd ever entered without trying. The rebels moved. He met them. What followed was not the brutality Rebecca had been told to fear from the Alpha King. It was precision, targeted, economical, each rebel subdued rather than destroyed, disarmed rather than broken. He moved through them like someone who had decided exactly how much damage the moment required and refused to exceed it. The relic blazed brightest when he shielded. She noticed, the elders noticed. When he placed himself between a fallen rebel and a retaliating pack member, the light surged violet and blue, simultaneously recognizing something in the intent, not the power. Cheryl was last. Frank stood before his sister, blade lowered, breathing ragged, the wolf's bane still working against him. He stepped back. Exile, he said, not execution. Cheryl's composure fractured just briefly, just enough. The elders knelt, not in sequence, not in performance, one by one with the deliberate weight of men choosing rather than obeying. Frank turned to face the chamber. Pack law will be rewritten. His voice carried to every corner of stone. No mate bond will override consent, not mine, not anyone's. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the sound of something shifting permanently. Cheryl left before dawn. No escort of shame, Frank wouldn't permit that. A horse, provisions, a sealed letter of passage that would keep her safe in exile without advertising his mercy. He stood at the stronghold gate and watched his sister ride into the thinning dark without calling after her. Rebecca stood beside him, not touching, present. It was enough. The revision of pack law took 3 days. Forced mate claims abolished. Alpha authority restructured to require council balance, no single voice carrying absolute weight. The elders signed with the particular gravity of men who understood they were writing something that would outlast them. On the 4th day, Frank found Rebecca in the torchlit corridor where everything had broken open, where the relic had first burned blue in his hands, where she'd whispered his name like an accusation, and he'd answered it like a confession. She was holding the medallion. He crossed the corridor and covered her hands with his. The relic ignited violet and blue rising together, neither consuming the other, equal and simultaneous. The light moved across her face and he watched her eyes flicker, just briefly, just at the edges violet. She saw his glow blue in return. Neither of them spoke for a moment. I'm not offering you a throne, he said, beside me. I'm offering you a choice, with full authority to walk away from it at any time. Rebecca looked at their joined hands, the light pulsing steadily between them like a second heartbeat that had always known what they hadn't. I paid a stranger to protect me, she said softly. Frank smiled unguarded, unhurried, the first smile she'd seen on him that wasn't threaded with restraint. And you changed a kingdom. She didn't walk away. She chose to stay.